you would just like, you just had to hold down the play and record button at the same time and do something, and then it would bring it to the beginning of the session, and you could track over that. You couldn't really choose where you were gonna start.
Yeah, so our podcast is all about you, your journey in music, and how you got to where you are now.
Sounds good.
Very cool. And I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about a little bit about Dance Gavin Dance. I know it's not what we're here to talk about, but I know it's part of your journey.
100%. It's what I'm working on right now. So
okay,
appropriate. Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. So first off, why don't you tell me about where you were born and raised?
I was born and raised in Clearwater, Florida, or at least close to there, a little suburb of that. Dead end street. Small house, 2 sisters, kind of sandwiched into a little place. And yeah, it was great. I mean, I had like a pretty idyllic childhood. We played outside all the time. Pretty much our life centered around like all the kids in our neighborhood.
Okay.
Together.
That's awesome. You said 2 sisters. Are they musical at all?
Yeah, actually, I consider them much more musical than I am.
Really?
They just didn't really fall into that career path. I think my parents kind of pushed it more on them. They pushed like performing on them, and I was more into sports. And I think because my parents pushed it on them so much, they kind of rejected it.
Okay.
They were like in plays and in choirs and doing that all when I was growing up, and I was kind of watching them from a distance, getting involved here and there, but not really. I didn't really get into making music until I was like 16.
Okay. And what was the first instrument you learned?
I learned piano actually at like age 7 or 8. Like I started to do lessons. My
parents put you in that?
Yeah, pushed me into it, and then I didn't like it. I liked soccer, I liked basketball, and then I would say I actually like started trying to learn guitar at about 16, and that just came through a girlfriend who same country and taught me the chords. And I kind of happened upon a digital recorder around that time, like like a little Korg box, and I didn't really know what I was doing yet, but I still started trying and like started writing songs and recording them before I knew how to play guitar or I really knew how to sing. Yeah, I kind of got introduced into music making through recording.
Interesting.
First, because I was fascinated with just, playing something and hearing it back, and then like putting a layer on top of that and hearing it back. That's kind of how I got into it.
Was there something that like inspired you to want to learn how to record? Like that seems like something like pretty random in the sense.
Yeah, it was extremely random. No, it was complete chance. Like I went to a boarding high school, and there was an out of commission sauna at that high school, and there was this blue Korg, like I think it was like it had 16 tracks as an option, and you just had to hold down the play and record button at the same time and do something, and then it would bring it to the beginning of the session, and you could track over that. You couldn't really choose where you were gonna start. But you could do like the whole pass of the song and then like record over that with a whole pass of the song. And I just, with no skill at all, just kind of started recording for fun.
Interesting. And did you you said you weren't playing guitar at this point yet though?
I had, like, I knew a few chords, and then my friend Buck taught me like, oh, you can also play power chords, and this is what those look like.
Oh,
And
sure. That must have been a game changer, right? Then you can play the song.
Yeah, huge game changer. So I think like growing up around music, I think I had an ear for it.
Okay.
So that was helpful. But I didn't know what I was doing. I probably still don't know what I'm doing, but
debatable.
well, I like even Will in Dance Gavin Dance, like he's not like classically musically trained whatsoever. So like communicating things to him, like I can't even tell him like if I say play, a D sharp, he's like, I don't know what you're saying, even though he's like this guitar virtuoso.
Sure.
But yeah, so it kind of works out in that way.
That's funny.
With the band.
Well, with those songs that you're recording on that recording, your process, were those like, when did they leave the bedroom, so to speak, and when were you playing to people? Like, did you join a band? Like, what was your first experience with that?
Yeah, I had like an inkling toward it, and I kind of started performing right away as well.
Oh, wow.
Like I would just cover songs. I mean, I grew up, like I was in high school around, Death Cab, Brand New,
all my favorites.
Bayside.
Sure. Like, okay.
And those songs are pretty easy to learn. So I could pull them off and kind of sing and play them. And I started performing right away, pretty much, when I probably too early before I knew how to actually pull it off. Okay. And that's kind of how everything happened. Like I had this like willingness to try to make it happen before I actually was any good. And then I just kept trying and kept practicing until eventually, I guess Tides of Man, my first actual band, that was like, I would say when we played our first legitimate rock shows, we formed extremely quickly, just like everything else. Like I think we booked a show 10 days after we formed. Just
really?
Like, okay, we got to get the songs together. They had some like material from old bands, and I had material, so we just kind of collaborated. We were in town for like a really short, during like a Christmas break, essentially. And we just put a set together. I think it was only 5 songs, but we kind of extended it because we did like jam sections. And then it just never stopped.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So once that band, you guys, I mean, you signed to Rise Records with that band. I mean, you guys did things. I mean, that must have been cool to kind of tell me about the kind of the success, like the chain of success there. Yeah, for sure. So I definitely lucked out running into those guys because they had been playing together in another band for a while, or the majority of them. And I was living in LA and they were in Florida. And I think the bassist was living somewhere else as well. And we just kind of met up over like a Christmas when everyone was in town, kind of meeting with their families. And we booked the show, super ambitious about that. Pulled it off. It went really well. Like that was during the era when I feel like people just went to shows just because they were friends with people. And I mean, I'm sure that happens now, but we were all of that age. Pulled it off, and then we all just decided to stay and try to make a band. And then we just took like the next year writing our first album and like working and saving. And we all really liked the way Lydia's Illuminate sounded, like the recording. So we hit up the producer, Matt Malpass, who had made that album, and booked time
recorded it, and just kept playing shows. Like I would say once a month we were playing in like the Tampa area.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, put it up on MySpace, and Craig Erickson from Rise Records was like browsing the internet late at night. He said he was smoking weed, drinking wine, and
Scouting talent.
Yeah, he liked the band name, and he just clicked on the link and heard the first song of the album and was like, okay, I'm gonna offer you guys a deal on it. And just wrote us a MySpace message and like left his phone number. And then we all, you know, called each other, and then
cheered.
I think I called him, and then we had a pretty short conversation, and it was a terrible deal, like in the scheme of deals.
Right.
But our biggest like fear, I think, was just being like a local Tampa band forever. And we didn't really have to wait too long for this opportunity to come, and we just took it. We were just like, all right, fuck it. If we take this, we're going to be touring nationally. Like,
I mean, they're a huge label.
Within the year. So we just took it and we just ran with it.
Wow. Were you like really pursuing like music as like the thing, like your dream, as far as like
we were.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
It wasn't like you
I
guys
definitely
were just...
skipped.
Sorry,
I definitely skipped over some stuff for sure in the timeline. Like I was in LA. I joined a band. I was playing bass in the band and singing backups, and like there was definitely some stuff in the middle there, but I don't know. The storyline just went where it went.
Sure. I was just curious. Okay, so yeah, this was like a thing. Like you're actively pursuing music as your life.
Yeah, but this was the first time I had tried to be a singer. Okay.
Yeah. And to see success like that, did you, when you saw that email or that message on MySpace, were you like, this isn't real? Like, or did you ever have that moment where you're like, did you think it was like some catfish moment?
Kind of, but we had pretty like lofty expectations for the band when we formed.
Okay.
So like and that group of guys was really serious, and they were like, we were pretty dedicated. Like we would practice, on that first album, we would pretty normally go till 3 a.m.
Wow.
And just go and do those. And actually, are you there?
Yeah. Sorry, you cut out there for a second. You froze there for a second.
Okay, cool. It's all good.
Okay.
Yeah, we would pretty actively just pursue it, and that group of guys was extremely ambitious, probably more than me, and just had high expectations from the start.
Okay.
So when that came, we kind of expected something. We had we were at that time also, we were talking to Red Bull Records as well.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And that didn't work out, and we kind of knew it wasn't going to work out because they wanted to essentially re-record the whole album and put us through their like studio.
Oh,
and,
interesting.
Like document the whole thing. And they were like first launching, and it wasn't really. We were pretty impatient. We just didn't want to wait.
Now they're going to pay you in Red Bull.
Yeah, let's just do this now.
Yeah, in Rise, that's not like some little tiny label came up and was like, hey, we want to be a part of it, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna leave Red Bull. It's like Rise Records is obviously a thing. So
yeah, and even at that time, and I think that was 2007 or 8. They were already doing really well.
Yeah. Okay. So that, you obviously signed to Rise, and was it on the road right away? Like, I'm sure they did quite a bit for you. Right out the gate, right?
Yeah, I would say there was like a year of like, and a year for at that age seems like 10 years.
Right.
Waiting around like for the first kind of opportunity. But yeah, then we, that was kind of the model. they throw their bands on tour, especially around that time with their other bands, and see if it sticks.
Sure. That's cool. That's really cool. What was like the first tour? Were you guys obviously the supporting act? Or did you get to support like a pretty big band right away?
It was a Static Lullaby. And
oh, really?
Yeah. And on that tour was Motionless in White and Vanna and Asking Alexandria.
That's rad.
Yeah.
That's really rad.
I think it was their last tour, Static Lullaby.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, very cool.
I think at the end of that tour, they're like van and trailer with like a good portion of the money they made on the tour got stolen outright. Just like someone stole the whole
thing.
Yeah.
How do you even get away with that? You're just like, well,
no
I've heard so many horror stories with people's gear getting stolen. Like that must be a pretty common thing. It's awful.
Yeah, definitely.
That is awful. So well, you know, you were with Tides with Man for a while, few years, and then you did some stuff with Seosin, right?
Yeah. Yep. There was like a year or two gap where I was working with a bunch of different bands. I was free agenting for a while. Like I worked with Emarosa, Seosin, and they were called Architects at the time, and now they're Night Verses.
Oh wow, okay.
I did like 5 or 6 songs with them. I think that's it. I think that's pretty much it in that time period. And then
it's kind of shopping yourself around.
And then I started making solo music. And I was actually in the studio for that when Gavin Dance hit me up.
What was that like?
Well, Tides had toured with them before.
Okay.
And actually, I think this was pure chance as well. There was one day in San Diego where their singer at the time, Kurt, was sleeping in the van during their sound check, and they were going to play like Me and Zoloft Get Along Just Fine. That's the song they were going to play for sound check. And I was like, hey, let me sing with you guys. So I just did the sound check. I mean, not knowing, it was just for fun, not knowing anything would ever come of it. But I honestly think that moment like kind of put me in their headspace for when they needed a singer later.
Wow.
Yeah, just pure chance.
That's amazing.
And then they needed one. They had a whole tour booked, and they called me and they were like, super excited. A little tipsy when they called me, and I was like not in this exact same mindset. I was like, I don't know, because I had been kind of like talking to a few bands and like nothing was panning out, and I kind of had maybe a more like skeptical approach on if it would work out.
Sure.
I was like, okay, we'll do the tour and we'll just kind of see where it goes from there if we get along. And yeah, it was great. I mean, I don't even know if we actually got along, but the energy was
got along
really
enough.
Good. Yeah, we got along enough. Yeah. I mean, we did. It was just like at that point, 2012 version of Dance Gavin Dance was like, it was a party band, like 100%, just constant partying. So that was definitely an adjustment for me, but yeah, it worked out. And then,
and ever since you've been, the guy.
6 albums together. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I will say, I love the fact that you kind of became on their radar in San Diego, because that's where I'm from originally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Where were you at? Soma or something?
Soma's side stage. Yeah.
Oh, really? Even the side stage at that point.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. They've revamped that place again. Like, I don't know if you've played there since. I've only been there a couple times. Like, I mean, I'm in Nashville now. My family just moved to Nashville,
a
couple months ago, but I was in San Diego for most of my life. And they kind of like changed the main stage up. It really has, they've put some money into it, but
that's cool.
It's a bit different now, but that's amazing. So 2012, you joined Dance Gavin Dance, and they were a thing obviously at that time. Was it cool kind of jumping in into like an established thing, or was it
Yeah.
weird? I mean, did you get any backlash from people? Like, oh, you're not the, you know, the original guy or whatever. Like, was that a thing?
So apparently I did. Yeah. Like I didn't really see it too much at the beginning. I was just kind of stoked.
Right.
But when I first joined, because the last iteration before I joined was like Johnny Craig's return.
Okay.
And it was like, you know, they were doing really well. And when I joined and filled in for that tour that they had already booked, apparently it flopped. And I thank God at the time I had no idea that it was flopping. Like, because I wasn't around for I was only around for their Kurt years. Like I toured with them in their Kurt years, and it was like it was doing as well as that. So I just never really thought that it was a flop, you know. And apparently it was, and it took like, you know, maybe an album or two of me and the band to build it back up, and then obviously, you know, a few albums later, it's fucking
amazing.
It's still surreal to us. Like it's the fact that we're, you know, we're gonna be 40-year-old screamo guys if everything goes well. It's just fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it was to me it was just awesome. Like just I wasn't singing any of my own songs. I had actually already done that. I'd already done the fill-in role, so I was comfortable in it. And yeah, it was just a blast. And then we did the first album. We kind of didn't have the formula worked out at all, I think, on the first one. And by the second one that I did with them, I think we kind of figured it out. And then since then, we've just been kind of rolling off of that momentum.
Sure. Was it cool? Like, I mean, finally singing song, you know, the first record you were on was Acceptance Speech, right? With them. And was that like, once you were touring on songs that you had written, I'm sure that was a bit more gratifying, I would think, than playing songs that were already there.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I would say that was a cool period of time, but really when everything changed was the album after that, Instant Gratification. To reuse your word. That's when it kind of like sunk in, like, oh shit, we could actually be a band that's around for a while. Like this whole time in the back of my head, it seemed like a trial. Like I was like, I don't know if this is gonna pan out. I don't know how long this is gonna last, but yeah, let's do it. Fuck it. Like we get along, we make cool music, let's just fucking do it. And then we were touring Instant Gratification, and I remember we were in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we got back like the first week numbers for that album. And I remember it was like, in terms of album sales, it was like Fantagram was at 6 and we were at 7.
Wow.
And I was just like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Like how, because I didn't really have that kind of expectations for it. None of us did. And at that point we were like, oh fuck, like we're gonna be a band. Like this is, even though they're 8 years in and I'm a couple years in, or something like that around that time. But it was just like, oh shit, like, yeah, we've made a mark, and now we have like a kind of a platform to jump off of. And that was the moment where it was like, I started appreciating it, I think, from then on, and trying to really like, take in every moment.
That's interesting. I mean, you guys charted, it sounds like you charted on that album. And to a band like Fanagram was getting radio play, across the nation. And I don't really, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I was in radio, did radio for 16 years in the alternative world. And we never played Dance Gavin Dance in the air. We played the shit out of Fanagram, but we never played Dance Gavin Dance. And the fact that you guys were on the same level, that's incredible.
Yeah, back in 2015. Yeah, that it shocked us, honestly. That night was like, I still remember it. We were just like, what the fuck? Like we have a fan base. I didn't, because we're the band that like we don't really get, or at least not until the last few years, like we don't get festival respect whatsoever, because people are like, yeah, this isn't really a festival band. Yeah, we're gonna build. We still deal with the thing where like we get regularly billed under bands that submitted to our tours in festivals. That's like something that happens all the time.
Interesting.
I don't know why.
I don't know if you can give me an example, like
when yeah. Uh-oh. Okay.
I don't want you to throw anyone on the bus, so if you don't feel comfortable answering.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to
no worries.
Call out anyone specifically, but just like a band that, you know, we put out a headliner kind of submission, and the bands that submit to support, and then we do like a national rock festival.
And they'd be up higher up on the name.
They'd be built up. And that's been consistent the whole career of the band, just because I think people don't really take it seriously. But it's, again, neither do we, because it's not really serious music. It's, so it kind of makes some sense, but at the same time, definitely even back then, it was unbelievably to a greater extent. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
So seeing that chart was a huge shock in 2015 for all of us.
Yeah.
We're like, oh shit, like, you know, we're doing better here than you know, bands that are 15 slots above us at festivals.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like just, you know, a eye-opening moment, and also just like a really inspiring moment too, because we realized then, like, we don't have to do it. We don't have to do the formula that other bands around us are doing. We don't have to, like, if there's a new trend, we don't have to jump on it. We don't have to like try to get radio play. We don't have to try to make songs that are more digestible. We can just satisfy our base and grow that base and grow the relationship with that base. And that's pretty much what we've been doing.
And during that time of you in 2013, was that when you put out your first solo record? So you were kind of doing your solo stuff linear with what you were doing with Dance Gavin Dance.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah.
Like, would you write a song like Material Me, for example? Were you like, okay, this is a song that is going to be solo? Like how do you balance the two things?
Well, Material Me was fully done before Dance Gavin Dance.
Oh, it was.
It just didn't get released. It didn't have the opportunity to release it. But yeah, that was done before. At that time I listened to a lot of pop alternative, and I just was heavily influenced by that, and kind of made an album like that. And then the solo albums have been a really cool outlet, because it's like I get to do, like, the next album after Material Me, Perfect Enemy, was like a completely stripped back, like drums aren't even on every song. And I just wanted to do something where the voice and lyrics carried everything. So it's a cool, and then this last one, Factory Reset, I got to play around with elements of rock that Dance Gavin Dance never touches, which was fun for me, for sure, because, you know, I don't really contribute much to the instrumental side of Dance Gavin Dance, other than like rearranging and you know, I don't like that song.
or I like that song.
Okay.
So it was fun. This last one was fun to be able to do like my take on rock based on what I listen to.
Okay.
And based on what I want to hear, that's kind of in the gap of what exists. That was the whole plan for Factory Reset. My most recent solo album was just to try to, there's a space missing in rock and pop, and I want to try to fill that with something unique.
I love that. I'm just curious. I want to talk to you a lot about that record. But real quick to rewind, have a second to like to Perfect Enemy, for example. Like that record came out in 2015, along with Instant Gratification, when you said kind of solidified Dance Gavin Dance for you. Like, were you writing? Like, how do you? I mean, you must have been writing songs for your solo record as stuff was happening with Dance Gavin Dance. Like, that seems like you were pretty busy there.
Yeah, and actually, I think it really helped, because at that time, like I got my first publishing deal, and was working and doing a lot of co-writing and trying to make songs for other people and make songs for my solo project. And that gave me a lot of influence that I wouldn't have gotten without that opportunity. That translated over to Instant Gratification for sure. Like, I think that's why there's a little bit more, that album is noticeably more, there's more pop influence on the vocals compared to the previous one, just because that's what I had been doing that whole year.
Interesting.
So I would hear like heavy music and be like, all right, well, I mean, the scales are still similar. It still works. The tempos are similar. Just because the guitars are heavier doesn't mean I can't try to kind of blend the two. And I think it also, other than consciously, I'm sure it was subconsciously as well, that I just heard different melodies because I was working in a different world.
Did you tour those solo records at all, or were you pretty much wrapped up?
Yeah.
With Dance Gavin Dance.
Did I tour? Yeah, I did. I toured not the first one in America. I did Australia.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then I did a tour for each record. Just one each.
So after Perfect Enemy, then you focused on obviously Dance Gavin Dance with Mothership. What would you say, like, I mean, coming off of Instant Gratification and you saying that that was kind of you chart on that record, was it difficult to want to put out or try to put out something that was going to be just as successful, or was that not even a thought in your guys' brain at that point?
That one just flowed, I think. Mothership was like, it had such an easy flow. Like there was, when you're making an album and there's like really stressful moments, like you're in the middle of it and you're just like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to write 6 more songs. And like, I feel like Mothership just we were touring a lot and we were playing a lot of music. And I think I actually, speaking of solo touring, did a solo tour and then finished the solo tour and went like didn't go home and just went to the studio to do Mothership.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was like really in practice as well. Like I think that helps too. So singing every night, going to the studio, and I think most of that was written in Portland at Chris's place where we actually recorded it. I just kind of went in with optimism and just kind of wrote out the album, and it flowed really nicely. I don't know if I'd be comfortable with doing that again. Like we're making an album now. I'm actually going in a couple days.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot more preparation before I hit the studio this time.
Okay. Was Mothership the only album that you did it that way, or?
Yeah, I would say it's the album that we did it that way the most.
Okay.
And Will was up there with me and John during vocals, and there was a good amount of collaboration. and a good amount of like, just like, yeah, this feels right. This feels right. And it wasn't really like, I don't know. I think, I think that album was made more by feel than thought. You know what I'm saying? Like we had the dates booked and we just went in and we just did it.
Okay. And then you did in 2018, you did the same thing again as you did with Instant Gratification and Perfect Enemy, where you put out a solo record and a Dance Gavin Dance record on the same year. So another busy year for you, I'd imagine. And you also, with the Skeptic, you signed to Rise Records. I mean, you were already on Rise Records with Dance Gavin Dance. Was it just kind of like it made sense to do both projects on the same label?
Well, yeah, I had another label for the solo stuff.
Yeah.
So that kind of just ended. And then I actually recorded the Skeptic on my own dime and had it done and brought it to Rise and was like, hey, you guys want to put this out? And yeah, the Skeptic was done over a long period of time. It wasn't like hit the studio for a couple months and get it all done.
Okay. Were you working on it over the course of those 3 years?
Just when I would have off time, I would just work on it. And I did do like a chunk of recording, but the writing was just spread out through years. Okay.
And with putting out 2 albums in the same year, were you able, like, what was that like? Was it, was there, I don't know, difficulties doing that or no?
Honestly, I'd have to look up the timeline of which one came out when, because I don't even know which one came out first now. In hindsight. Yeah, I feel like Artificial Selection was done over a short period, like 5 weeks in over kind of like December, at least for me and John. And the band did it, in the fall before that. And the Skeptic was just so spread out that it didn't feel like I was doing 2 records in the same year. It felt like the solo record I'd been working on for years, and then,
Awesome. Okay, so sorry. So Skeptic, you said, came out. That was kind of a process of over the course. That was something you had been working on for a while. Different story with the Dance Gavin Dance record. I'm curious to know, so you guys put out a record called Afterburner in 2020. Where were you?
Right.
And then you have, you said you're working on a new record now, and you put out Factory Reset, which I want to talk to you about. So where were you guys, or where were you at? And when this whole like coronavirus happened, was Afterburner a done deal at this point? And you just waited to put out the record, or like, how did that all kind of unfold? Like where were you at, say, February 2020?
Well, extremely specific. We were at the first show for the Afterburner tour.
Okay.
The record was done. We were at the what is the venue called? In LA. The first show in LA. And yeah, sold out show. We unloaded, went to the green room. Like 2 days beforehand, the NBA had shut down. So we knew like, okay, this could possibly affect us, at least in big cities. Like we kind of assumed like, okay, maybe like we won't be able to play New York City. Maybe we won't be able, but we can do LA now because it's still early. That was kind of our mindset. And then the venue in LA is just like, no, you guys, we're shutting down. So
so you loaded in and everything.
Everything. Yeah, we were in the green room. Booking agent was there, manager was there, so we were able to talk it through. And yeah, they just told us, yeah, we can't do the show. And then shortly after, like 2 days later, that show got canceled. Like this all happened in like an hour. And then we're just like, okay, let's just cancel the tour, postpone it, and try to book it for, a few months from now. and obviously that didn't work out either.
So here we are a year and a half later.
Yeah. So we just kind of released that album with no tour. I mean, every band was kind of in the same boat. We did a couple live streams, which it's a cool, unique thing to have done. I don't want to do another one, hopefully.
Sure. I've talked to other artists who are like, yeah, it's kind of like it's cool to be like a bucket list thing, so to speak, in the sense of like you did that during this weird time period, but like it's not something you want to continue with.
No, it's not a medium that I enjoy as a fan. So like, I'm sure that there'd be certain bands that I'd enjoy it with, you know, if I was a super fan. So I feel like it was something for our extreme fans, and I'm sure that there were a portion that liked it, but I think, you know, it doesn't even sniff live music.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, when that all happened and everything shuts down, is that when you start working on the latest record that you put out with Factory Reset? Was that something that you were working on during this virus situation, or had you already started songs and kind of knew you wanted to put it out another solo album?
Yeah, I had started songs, but I didn't use any of those songs for the album. I had a few done, and I didn't wind up putting them on the album. I just figured, well, there's a lot of downtime. Let me book some time in the studio and try to make some music and try to be productive during the time. And then the studio dates got canceled too. So I was like, okay, let's reassess. Sure. So I'm like, okay, I've got this room, you know, I can get some gear. I can kind of learn how to do it on my own. And that's pretty much what I did. And it took a lot longer than your typical recording process, just because I was learning, and I don't have a decade of experience behind the desk, like editing everything. So it was really drawn out and really low, but honestly, I think it made it what it is. I took a lot of trips out to the desert. Like that was like one thing I could do. I was like, well, there's no coronavirus in the middle of the desert.
Sure. Were you going out to where, like Palm Springs area or something?
Joshua Tree, yeah. Joshua Tree. And I was just like kind of feeding off of the isolation and feeding off of the, you know, I don't know, that this album it couldn't have been made in any other time, I don't think, I wouldn't have made these songs, at least some of them maybe, but like obviously there was a couple collaboration tracks that I could have made at any point, but this album is like pretty unique amongst my solo stuff for sure, and I think it'll probably stay that way. I don't know if I'm going to go further into the direction that kind of the first half of the album went in. I'm not sure yet. I'm still kind of figuring it out for the next one. One thing at a time. I kind of I'm doing the Dance Gavin Dance one now.
Sure.
That's where my headspace is.
Is it a different mindset with that? Like, do you kind of like have to shift your writing and everything else when it comes to like deciding whether, you know, you're going to pursue something as a solo song or something you want to pitch kind of to Dance Gavin Dance?
Well, the biggest difference is obviously I make all the music for the solo stuff, and I don't for Dance Gavin Dance. So a solo song might start with a vibe, and for Dance Gavin Dance, it starts with the instrumental and then a lyric, and then or a melody, and it goes from there. So I get to build the solo music more slowly and kind of build it out from a feeling, and then it tends to be, because of that, it tends to be more serious too. And I also think because John and Will in Dance Gavin Dance, they're not, I don't know, like it's quirky. So there's a quirky element to the band that I can't be too like overly serious, otherwise it's really not going to work. It's not going to come across as authentic. So obviously there's certain songs that kind of touch on deeper topics, but there's a lot of like, okay, this song sounds this way. If I was singing about certain subjects, it might come across pretty weird. But yeah, I think I forgot your question at this point.
Oh, I was just curious if it takes like, if you have to shift your mindset when it comes to writing and then a song for Dance Gavin Dance versus writing, a solo song. But
yeah,
I mean, you answered the question.
yeah, I did. I think so.
Yeah, no, you totally did. I'm curious. You also said I want to talk to you about that. You talked about songs on this Factory Reset record that you wouldn't have been written if it wasn't for this whole virus hitting and kind of the vibe that's going on in the world. Do you feel like some of that will spill on over to what you guys are doing now with Dance Gavin Dance? Like there's songs that will come out that wouldn't have been written if it wasn't for what was going on now?
100%. Yeah, there's definitely, because I mean, I've got all John's lyrics, all my lyrics. Like there's definitely some isolation based content in there that's I don't think it's gonna ever be like super. We're trying to avoid being too on the nose with it, but obviously you can't. We typically write what you know, and if
you can't
if
avoid it, right?
Yeah, you can't. We're certainly not writing about partying with our bros, because we're not doing that.
Exactly. Well, you talked about with Factory Reset as well, like you recorded some of it yourself. Is that what you said?
Yeah, everything but drums.
Wow.
And then I did a collaboration track with Tim from Polyphia, and he produced that whole track, and I just did vocals.
Okay.
And we did it over text message. And then
really, what was that like? You just text him like a voice memo or something?
Yeah, and sent him like a song that I wanted to kind of have the vibe of, and then he sent it back, and then I tracked vocals, and then Chris Crummett mixed it, and I chopped it up a little bit, but honestly, he did such a good job that I was just like, all right, this sounds pretty good.
Sure.
And then there was another collaboration track, but other than that, I just recorded it all in here.
Wow.
Just keys, bass, guitar, and lots of programming and lots of vocal takes.
Well, kind of taking you back to like full circle, right? Isn't that how you kind of got involved with?
That's right. Yeah.
Originally, you kind of wanted to do the recording thing.
That's right. Yeah.
That's
actually cool. Yeah. So I had some experience and some education on it too. I wasn't like completely green, but I was green in terms of I had never tried to produce an album. It was more like I could do my own demos, but I just getting it to the next level of quality. It takes a lot more time and a lot more care. You don't want to leave those imperfections that demos have. So
sure. With the record and kind of a light on the end of the tunnel here with this virus and things starting to open up a bit, like do you think that you're going to tour the album at all, or just kind of focus on Dance Gavin Dance?
100%. It's already booked. It's just a matter of finding the time to announce.
Very cool. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And when did you guys decide to, I mean, you're probably really busy with the solo thing. When did you guys decide to start working on the newest Dance Gavin Dance record?
I would say Will started working on it right away. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, there's a in the first like few weeks of the lockdown, like he'd sent a track called Quarantine Breeze, and like and that was kind of the first thing that they started on, and they've just been going this whole time, like making instrumentals. Because of that, there's a lot of material, so it's pretty exciting because we've had like at this point it's been like a year and a half, and usually they'll like come together and make instrumentals in like a few months. But so there's a lot of material, and it's really thought out, and it's actually gonna be a unique Dance Gavin Dance album in that regard, because we've had so much time, and usually, you know, it's a crash course, and now it's like I've been sitting with a lot of these songs for months and months and months. So yeah, we're about to enter the studio, and I don't know, take our time. We have some soft deadlines, but it'll be new to work without a deadline, which I have never done.
How do you feel about that?
Other than the last album.
Okay.
Well, there's a deadline in terms of flights, so like that's I'm still going to treat that like a deadline, but it's not really
as like under the gun type writing.
Exactly.
Do you feel like is it easier to work under less pressure, or
I don't think so.
Like, okay.
It's why I think I like to create artificial deadlines, even if it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
It's like, you know, a round trip flight. That's nice. That'll do it, I think.
Okay. And what about recording? Like you said, you guys are going to go to the studio, or were you just demoing songs from that room, or will some of that make the record, or no?
No, I don't think so. I mean, unless some backups are good enough and make it in. But I mean, some of the ins are pretty good. So maybe I definitely wasn't doing it as I wasn't planning on using anything that I've been demoing in here for the album. We're just going to go recut everything in Portland with Chris Crummett.
That's awesome. So that room is specific to your solo records.
And I did a couple features in here too, in that time, that haven't come out yet. So.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Yeah. Well, awesome. And again, the light at the end of the tunnel here with stuff happening, that must be, are you excited to get out and play in front of people again here?
Definitely. I'm not only excited to play, I'm excited to go see shows again.
Sure.
We've been missing that big time. Just like hearing it, feeling just a bass cab just blasting you in the chest. It's like, it's gotta be therapeutic. Otherwise, I mean, people that are emotionally in pain, they gravitate toward that. So having that not available, it's gotta be tough.
Yeah, it's gonna be a huge emotional moment, especially seeing some of these festivals being announced. Like, people are going to lose it, I have a feeling.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Hopefully we lose it for a while.
Right. Exactly. Well, thank you so much for doing this today. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah. I
appreciate
it too.
Yeah, I have one more question before I let you go, Tilian. I want to know if you have any advice to aspiring artists.
Don't even get demos. That would be my biggest thing. Just as soon as you have a song or a few songs that are really good, get them professionally recorded and done right, and present your first work, because you want to make a good first impression. Present your first work as the best you can possibly do. Not like, oh yeah, you might believe in this because you'll see the potential. Just don't present the potential. Present, a polished, finished product, and try to pitch that as opposed to pitching the potential. Bring it back.
words.